Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you. Yeah, we spent the weekend at Mark Robinson's announcements outside holding signs saying he's not our man. We're going to show up everywhere he shows up because he is definitely not our man. We want to make sure our communities know and don't fall for the smooth talking that he does. Um, good afternoon, morning to you all. Thank you all for inviting me to speak. I am Dreama Caldwell, Executive Co-Director at Down Home, North Carolina. But what many people may not know is that Down Home is my political home. And so I came to Down Home in 2017 as actually a member. And I had just went through the criminal justice system and didn't quite understand what was happening and just was looking for somebody to fight with me, to figure it out, help me understand what had happened. And so Down Home was brand new to Alamance County in 2017 when it was founded. The original founders, Bridget and Todd, after the 2016 elections, were really trying to wrap their heads around what had just happened when Donald Trump was elected. They had spent the time opposing him at his rallies. And after seeing what was happening in their rallies, they really knew in their hearts that Donald Trump was going to win. And so once he won, it was like, we need to figure out, how do we push back? How do we here in North Carolina grow enough power so that we can build the North Carolina that is uh, equitable for all of us? And so they came up with this project. When I came to Down Home, it was still a project. And I answered a ad on Facebook about working class issues. And I think for the first time, I realized that the problems that I had went through the criminal justice system would have been completely different if I had had money. And so I answered it, and I came to a coffee shop and met with a organizer named Juan, who um, had a one-to-one with me and talked to me and heard all about my problems and listened. And then he began to ask me questions about what keeps me up at night. What are the problems in Alamance County that keeps me up at night? I had been about 7 years without health insurance. So my first answer was health insurance. I need to go to the doctor. I need to take my children to the doctor. My children hadn't been to the doctor in years. And after we began to talk more, he was like, I'd like to invite you into the office because I'd like to talk to you more about this multicultural project. And if any of you know anything about Alamance County, North Carolina, we're a very divided county. We literally were divided by the railroad tracks, where white people were on one side and Black people were on the other side. And we had to we just learned how to, people say we got along, but truly what we learned how to do is just to stay to ourselves. And so when he said a multicultural movement project, I was like, you want me to work with white people in Alamance County? And I just didn't see that that was going to be possible because of all the tensions that we had. And he said, just trust me, come into the office. When I go into Down Home, I see butcher paper all over the wall, and every municipality they had named out who was in office, how long they had been in office, and when they were due to come out of office. I had voted every single year because I believed it was my duty, because my ancestors had died for my right to vote, but I wasn't an educated voter. And so I didn't know who any of those people were on that page. I was just showing up at the polls, pushing a lever, and leaving, feeling that I was fulfilling my duty, and truly didn't understand that I needed to be a more educated voter and understand. And that pushing a straight Democratic ticket wasn't always, that every Democrat wasn't always the best choice for us. That when there are multiple choices of Democrats, literally I was just choosing someone because I didn't know, and there wasn't anyone in our community to educate us. And so I came to Down Home. And the first working group I joined was the Criminalizing the Poor working group, where I was able to talk about all the ways that we criminalize poverty, from people getting tickets for not being able to inspect their cars because they can't afford car repairs, and those tickets turning into license revocations because they can't pay the fines to get their car inspected. And so now they lose their driver's license. And then they get more driver's license, driving license revocation violations because they have to go to work. And so we were able to talk about all the ways that criminalizing poverty happens. And I was able to tell my story about cash bail and talk about how my family needed $40,000 to get me out to go home. Someone who was nonviolent, someone that had spent 20 years working with children. I didn't have any money to run away. I wasn't going anywhere. And instead they still gave me the $40,000 bond. And so we realized that our community didn't know that what cash bail was. And so we started teaching our community about cash bail. And we were hearing this word about growing power, but when you've been powerless all your life, you really don't understand what that means. But as we began to teach the community about bails, all of a sudden, the bail bondsmen began to get angry. They started showing up and crashing our events. They started coming into our office, being very rude. And we were actually showing the Khalif Browder story. If you haven't seen it, please look it up. It's a young man who was held in Rikers Island for 3 years. He was accused of stealing a backpack, had a $3,000 bail that his family couldn't pay. And he was actually put into solitary confinement. He was eventually let go because the charges was dropped, but his mental health wasn't well after that, and he killed himself. And so we were showing that story, and the bail bondsman came in a whole group and crashed that event. And in that moment, I think I understood about growing power. I understood that what we were doing by educating our community about the issues and bringing people into the fold, that we were actually growing power. We were able to build the first rural bail fund in the country that still goes on today, where we're able to bail people out who are in jail for $2,000 or less so that they can go home and that they don't miss my buddy showing up, that they don't miss their way home, their jobs and everything. And so that is an example of how Down Home works. We use local issue-based issues to build power around. And then once we get people in the door to build power around those local issues, we have a moment to politicize them and help them understand how almost always the problems we have can be tied back to the officials that we have, or the officials that we don't have to represent us. So we can build upon their local issue-based issues. Do I have screen sharing? I'd like to show you all a
Okay,
slide.
sure. Yeah, let's make sure. Yes, you do.
Okay.
What's your puppy's name?
Midnight. All right. Let's see how good I am. I usually have somebody run, a younger member running tech.
We identify with this.
All right. This is just going to kind of show you a little bit about our electoral work and our current electoral program that we have. So Down Home is a member-based grassroots community organization working to build power for poor and working people in small town and rural communities in North Carolina. 80 out of 100 counties in North Carolina are rural. There is no pathway to victory that does not include rural North Carolina. And so Unfortunately, it is an area that is underinvested in, and there are several reasons that it's underinvested in. It is very hard turf to knock doors in rural areas. In large metropolitan cities, you could park your car and walk and knock 40 doors in a very short time. In a rural area, you may be driving between all 40 of those doors. The other thing about rural areas is that the infrastructure isn't good. Sometimes internet is not well, and so you struggle to find internet and talk to people in this digital format that we have gotten used to doing. It's really hard to do in rural areas for people, and so um, we are in areas where there aren't anyone building in those areas where we are organizing. So in 2022, we did the largest expansion that we've ever done. We went from 2 chapters to 8 chapters, so we added 6 new chapters. And so we now have a regional organizing model. Our previous model, we had 1 organizer per 1 chapter, and that wasn't scalable at the cost it would have been to cover these counties. And so now we have a regional model. And so we have in our Western region, we have Ashe County and we have Watauga County. This past election, Watauga was able to flip their school board from the work of our members out there and the work that they are doing out there. And Watauga is getting blue or getting very close to being blue, not far from it. And we have in the Piedmont areas, Alamance is the legacy chapter, which is the chapter where I was a member at. And Alamance is just a really hard place, but the political landscape is changing. In the municipalities, we've gotten a lot of local people elected. For the first time in Alamance County history, we have a Black soil and water conservationist who was actually the only Democrat who won in the county in 2022, and she was a down home fellow at the time. We're in Person County, where we were able to help Ray Jeffers flip the seat from a 12-year incumbent. And Ray is a Black farmer, working class farmer that had been on the city council board, who knew his community and we knew would be a great representative. We also have Granville County, where we had some really big wins in Granville County. Mary Wills Bodie was elected as senator, and we defeated Bo Hines, who was a right-wing extremist that we did not need in office. Mary Wills Bodie, what happened was, as you know, this is probably the fairest maps that we've had in a really long time. And so what happened is that Mary Wills Bodie is a part of what we call a countrypolitan district. And what that means is that they have drawn districts that are in major urban areas, but they touch with rural areas. And so what happens is the work that we do in rural areas, where Mary Wills Bodie was actually from Granville, she did not win Granville, but the margins in Granville were large enough combined with the wins from Wake County that we were able to get her elected there. And so also in Granville, the first Black sheriff in the 276 history of the county was elected there in Granville as well by our members. We also have chapters in Johnston County. We have chapters in Craven County and Alamance, yeah, and Cabarrus County. And Cabarrus County is the place where, as you all know, we were able to briefly keep the supermajority from happening with Diamond Staten Williams' seat in in Cabarrus. Diamond was actually the very first person in Cabarrus County to sign a membership ID with us in the Cabarrus County office. And so Diamond was a down home member. And so our members endorsed her. we made 5 or 6 passes through Cabarrus. We were doing 50 shifts a day out there, and we were running phones as well as on the doors. And as you know, she was able to win by just a little over 600 votes. Here are kind of like our past electoral programs. Excuse me. So 2020 was COVID, so we were not on the doors in 2020. But in 2022, our goals were 264,000 knocks, which we exceeded, and actually we had 320,000 knocks. And our goals were 60,000, 740 conversations, and we actually had close to 80,000 conversations. Our deep canvas on the phones, we used the phones a whole lot more in 2020. So we had 621,000 attempts and 29,000 conversations. And our 2020 goals were to have 250 attempts, which we actually had over 320,000 attempts. And our goal was to have 12,500 conversations, which we actually had 1,500 conversations. We were really surprised. We didn't think after COVID people would answer the phones, but people were still answering the phones and wanting to talk. And hot topics were their school boards. People were upset at the things that were happening at their school boards, and then really getting to know who was running in their House and Senate seats. We also run a relational voter turnout where we have people who use their contacts to find out if they have voted and make sure they follow up to the point of voting. And so this year we had 1,400 leaders with 1,500 voters and 23,000 conversations. What we knew at the end of 2022 in our data, we knew that if we had talked to you either on the door or on the phone, 74% of those people actually voted. And so we know that the phones and the doors are very effective ways to get people to engage in voting. We sent out 4,000 pieces of mail. Some of those were postcards, some of them were actual mailers. And then digitally, we had 8 million impressions, 2 million people reached. In 2022, we reached the goal of having contacts in all 100 counties. So we have a point of contact in all 100 counties now. And so these are just a little bit about in 2018, just some of the things that we've done. Voters I did down home voters outperformed state voters turnout at 11%. In 2020, 74 to 80% of our voters in our relational voter program voted. Down home has helped to field test and deep canvas messaging in 2019 and 2020. And deep canvas is something that's growing, and I'm going to talk about that as an opportunity that you all can help me. You all can help in the next election. In 2020, we helped to elect Ricky Hurtado, the first Latinx legislator in North Carolina, by just 395 votes. What happened in 2020, I actually was a candidate in 2020 as well, on that same ticket with Ricky for county commissioner. And excuse me 1 second. You're gonna have to go out. Apologies. I was actually running for county commissioner in 2020. And so on that ticket, that was the most diverse ticket that Alamance County has had. What we believe is that in order to help and drive engagement up ticket, that we really need to pay attention to what's happening locally. And so people are more likely to be engaged and involved when they know the people that are on the ticket, when they have heard their names, when they have seen their names in their community. And so in 2020, when I ran for county commissioner, I actually was the first Black female that has ran for county commissioner, and I'm also the first Black female that has ever won a primary in Alamance County. I had to primary. What happened was I ran my campaign out of the east side of the county, which had never happened before. Honestly, I didn't do a lot of focusing on the west side of the county because of the people that I needed to engage that were not voting were in the east side. I made a decision that my campaign would focus on people who had not voted or um, people who hadn't voted in a really long time. 2020 was the year after North Carolina had purged over 500,000 voters who had not voted in the last couple of presidential elections. So people didn't even know that they weren't registered. Um, we went out and talked with people. We actually held a town hall for non-voters because we really wanted to sit with people and hear all the reasons that people were not voting. And we heard things like people didn't understand the system. Um, and we knew that a basic civics lesson was what was going to be needed during the campaign. And then the other thing that people said was that I voted all my life and nothing has ever changed in my life. And I had to acknowledge that for people and sit in that for people. And then also to move people from despair to understand that it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to stay that way. And that although it may take time to change, that it can change. All of a sudden my campaign went away from selling myself as a candidate to why you need to vote for county commissioner. This is what the county commissioner does. This is what the county commissioner controls. This is the things that the county commissioner can improve in your life by getting representation. Alamance County, just like many of our rural counties, does not have districts or wards. And so every single seat is at large, which is one of the ways that power remains the same in these areas. And so helping people to understand that you don't have representation because you don't show up to vote and you haven't had candidates that represented you. And so in 2020, myself was on the ticket. Ricky Hurtado was on the ticket. There was a young Black gentleman named Seneca Rogers running for school board. And what we decided to do was to spend time in our communities talking to people about who we were. At the end of that election, again, a countrypolitan election, we were not elected. Seneca and myself were not elected. We did have I did receive 34,000 people that voted for me. And so those 34,000 people helped to elect Ricky by those few small votes. And so what I really need people, what I think the lesson in that is to understand that alderman boards, soil and water, all of those things really matter when you want someone to come and vote for a legislative seat, for a presidential seat. Those local seats that are there, stressing that local seats to a non engaged person or a person who's not voting, you are going to engage them at that level by talking about what's happening locally. The national stuff is so far off. It's so sensationalized right now through our news that a lot of people have just turned it off. And so the way to get people to re-engage is to talk about local things. After I ran for office, I had a couple of childhood friends who came to me and said, I think I want to do this. And so they also ran for municipal elections and they were elected. And so one of my really good friends who also is on staff at Down Home as the Alamance County organizer won the alderman position, a Black man in Gibsonville. And one of the things that he likes to say to people is that potholes are neither Republican or they're Democratic. He was like, they affect everybody. And so by talking about those issues like potholes, our street, our schools, our values, talking about those things and coming off of the what we like to call the hot talking points of the parties, um, helps people to stay engaged in a conversation about voting when you talk about the things that are happening locally. In 2020, we also realized that there is another gap that's happening here in North Carolina infrastructure. As we work to build the infrastructure across the state, our partners and our organization, we have had really hard times hiring people. North Carolina is not a place where there are tons of organizers, because if it was, we'd already be a more progressive state. So we knew that we had people and leaders in communities. We believe that our members are the experts on their communities. Their lived experience makes them the experts, not the politicians that are not having the experience that they're having. And so we wanted to figure out, how do we take these people with their lived experience and give them organizing skills to continue to build power. And so in 2022, we launched our very first organizing fellowship program. And it was a unique program because, as you know, many fellowships are either unpaid or there's a small stipend. And a lot of times sometimes it can be elitist. It's like, who do you know? We're going to put you on. We're going to give you this. And so we were like, how do we give regular people the opportunity to do this? Regular working class people cannot afford to do this work for free. They cannot, even the training that we were giving people, we brought them on for 6 months as staff and we paid them a staff salary. We gave them benefits with insurance, and their only job was to learn organizing. We had a class of people. Our youngest fellow was 25, and our oldest fellow was 72 years old. And what a great class, because of all of this intergenerational wisdom that came together. We had also, we were able to get people from small towns and areas, Johnston County. We had people in the mountains from Yancey County. Um, and those people actually worked in our field program, and they did 3 weeks in the classroom, and the remaining time they were out on the fields. And so these were our outcomes: to have 8 people go through this training program, 1 to 3 people offered full-time jobs post-training. We actually were able to hire 2 people. The program runs from June until December, and organizers are offered classroom styles to build skills, political education, and camaraderie. And our curriculum is built on a foundation of racial equity and to meet a multitude of learning styles. And this is our director team. And so there's myself and Todd Zimmer, who is also the co-founder of the organization, Vicente Cortez, who is what we don't even call it our field director anymore. He's our political director. And Gwen is our communications director. And Juan Miranda, the very first organizer at Down Home, the organizer that brought me into the organization, has now returned back to our organization as our organizing director. And this is just a brief of what our organization kind of looks like. We now have grown from last year 6 employees to now we have 24 employees on our C3 side. Our C4 side currently has 2 employees, but during election time, it will ramp up to about 45 employees, and we'll have about 300 independent contractor canvassers all across the state. And this is our C4. And then I'll just take a moment just to see if you all have any questions about the organization.
Wow. Wow. If you came in late, I just want to say again, our amazing speaker today is Dreama Caldwell, Executive Co-Director of Down Home, North Carolina. Just blew all of us completely away. Thank you so much. And we do have some people with questions, YH.
Thank you, Dreama. You're just exceptional, unusual.
Yes.
And I would like to know, for those of us that are not in the counties where you are, how can we get involved? That is, can we come easily to your counties, or can we figure out how to bring it to our counties? Like, I'm in Chatham County, and I would really love to, work with people that live really adjacent to where I am.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're in a very rural area too.
Yeah. So yeah, good question. We do have opportunities. So our Deep Canvas Institute is an opportunity where we'll be looking for volunteers. We actually are not up and running yet, but very soon we will begin to call into counties to have conversation with people about Mark Robinson and just really talk about how dangerous Mark Robinson is for North Carolina. We also will be having a Deep Canvas Institute soon to teach people about Deep Canvas. Deep Canvas is a tool that's really been instrumental in us persuading and changing people's opinions about different things. We've used Deep Canvas to help oppose a jail expansion. We have used Deep Canvas to help get Diamond-Stat and Williams elected. But Deep Canvas is a way to use your personal story to have a conversation with people. My very first Deep Canvas conversation was about immigration. And I remember talking with a gentleman who told me he wanted all immigrants, which wasn't the word he used illegals, but he wanted everybody to be sent back to their home countries. And as we continued to talk, I asked him if he knew anyone who was from another country. And he talked about his coworker, Jorge, who he talked about very fondly. And so I continued to have him tell me about Jorge and his family and everything. And at the end of the conversation, I went back to ask him if he really thought that he needed to be deported. And there was this silence for a very long time. And he was like, no, he's a good guy. I don't want him deported. He was like, I really just want the people deported who commit crimes. And I was able to go, oh, we're talking about something different now. And so we were able to move him in that conversation and his thought process to like, no, everybody doesn't need to be deported, to maybe just the people who are committing crimes. And so Deep Canvas is something that I definitely can get information out to you all about how you could join on Deep Canvas. We also do have community canvases in the counties that we are in. We do have a strategic plan for expansion, and we're going to be expanding into Pitt, Nash, and Vance counties out east there, but we currently don't have a plan to have expansion in other areas. We do have our North Carolina HEAL work, which is our school boards team, where that is statewide work, and that is work that you could get involved in as well. And so I'll do a follow-up email with all of these links and that information for you.
Thank you so much. And Dewey from Franklin County has his hand up. He's an amazing organizer and canvasser in Franklin County.
Dreama, I've been there, done that. I have to tell you, you're one of the most outstanding speakers I've ever heard. You
Thank you.
come from the right roots out there, but you're comfortable in yourself, and you don't give us a fluff. It's very good information.
Thank you.
I knocked on about 1,000 doors this time, and Franklin County has turned red, and it was disheartening. It was I wore myself out, spent a lot of money going over the whole county, and a couple of questions I have from you being out there. Do you think what percent of the Black population, which 90% plus is where the doors I knocked, what percent of the Black population doesn't hear what a 80-year-old white man is telling them about elections and voting?
Yeah, I think this is a question that we have a lot in Down Home. That, you know, we talk a lot about race with our who's on the phone, who's at the doors, you know, who's at. And so we strategically do things about, like, if we send out canvassers where there is a Black and a white canvasser together, but both people will talk to and approach the doors. Because one of the things that we believe at Down Home is that we all want the same things. And so by going to that door and stating that, and really sharing in the fact that, like, we all want good schools for our children, we want safe neighborhoods, we want our government to be transparent and accountable. And so by really, like, talking about and sharing those things, we can get past that initial thought of a white man at my door, you know, whatever. We do know in certain areas, like out in Ashe County, where there's only 3% of Black people, we have to be very cognizant of that. And so I think that it does matter, but I really think it's more about how your approach is at the door, when you're at the door. And I think just, you know, learning to listen a lot more than you speak. Because a lot of people, when we go to doors, say, no one's ever knocked on my door and asked me those things. No one has ever knocked on my door and heard what my issues are. And so I do acknowledge that is hard, but I do think that, I mean, we see it being done every day across the state, that it definitely can be done.
The second thing that I would ask you, I have a real concern, and I know others do too. The Black vote is essential for Biden getting back in there, for Democrats out there. I'm real concerned about social issues and the Black vote. How do we overcome that? And I'm talking about not people maybe that vote for Republicans, but people just don't vote because of certain social issues or their church or the likes of that.
Yeah, I think I've challenged our organization as we talk about how essential the Black vote will be in 2024, especially here in North Carolina. I challenge people to realize and to think that, to make sure that our organizations and the work that we're doing is ready and has taken, you know, I think that taking diversity and equity, racial equity training and stuff is so important to us all, no matter what race you are. I think that Black people, for many reasons, have not engaged politically, but I also think that organizations and our parties have not worked to engage Black people. And so what we see happen is that the election happens, and then we say, oh, the Black vote was down. But what I hear when I'm at doors is that Black people are tired of politicians who only show up at their churches during election time. Black people are tired of people who only show up at their door at elections time. And so to engage not just Black voters, but other BIPOC communities, it's going to take engagement and trust building year round. It has to be year round. It cannot be this transactional thing that has been happening for years where people just show up during election time and then you don't come back to our communities, or you don't come back um, to us throughout the year, or you don't feel beholden to us when you get into office and our issues when you get into office. So there's like this two-pronged thing that has to happen. Our organizations have to develop a specific strategy for meeting and bringing in Black voters, but then we also have to make sure that we are engaged with these people year round and building trustworthy relationships.
Let me just say, the only reason that I don't have a Black person with me, one, I lost my soulmate, Marvin Gill, that did that, but there's only 5 of us for the county. The big part of the canvassing time and resources are the big part of it. And I agree, year round is what we need. And I know you're there too. After we've gone through our elections with precincts and then just before that, the elections, we're tired, of course, again, and it's hard to find young people. All organizations are wanting youth. It's not easy, and we don't expect them. Many of them have jobs during the day, more so than we do, and that's the dilemma. But thank you very much again.
Yeah. One of the things I just shared with our partners is that this work is it is tiring, it is draining, it's disheartening at times when you work so hard and then you see the election and only 50% of the people, well, if you're lucky, 50% showed up. It's very disheartening. And I just remind people that each of us are just a piece to a larger puzzle. And when it feels like there's so much work to do, I think that we really have to, in this moment, go into a spirit of collaboration, move from a spirit of competition to collaboration. And it's like a relay race where we pass the baton. We've got to really build up our local infrastructures to find out who else is doing what we're doing, and sitting down with people and creating shared plans. And so that we have a long fight in North Carolina. This state is not going to change overnight. It's going to take many cycles of work. And so how do we sustain ourselves to do this work? And the only way we can do that is by leaning on one another. And I think for so long, our organizations have worked in silos where we've just done what we do, and we're in these silos and we're burning ourselves out. And so we've got so long to go that we are gonna have to lean on one another, and we're gonna have to create shared plans and work with each other together.
I think Ms. Clayton will probably be the energy for that.
You're getting a lot of Dreama, you're getting a lot of comments in the chat about how much we appreciate you and all that you're saying and who you are. I hope you can feel our love and appreciation for you, because it's coming in waves from all of us. And Susan has her hand up.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you. You are, we were talking about the necessity for charismatic leaders, and thank you for being one. And I have a question, and that is, I have 2 questions asked, actually. The first is, you were talking about the necessity to unsilo ourselves and make relationships with other organizations. And I'm wondering, with whom does your organization have relationships? And specifically, what about here in Durham County, where I live?
Yeah, so we have relationships. Carolina Federation is a really good partner of ours. We actually are both base building, power building organizations. They're in more urban areas. We are in rural areas. So Carolina Federation, as well as Siembra, because Siembra works with the Latinx communities. We don't believe that we need to recreate the wheel. Like, there are people out here doing that work, right? And so we don't have to recreate that wheel. And so we've got NCAT, which is North Carolina Asian Americans Together. They're doing that work with the Asian American communities. We also are partners with New Rural Project, who is kind of new in our infrastructure. And so we share a lot of resources and things like that. We are also a part of national organization, People's Organization, that has power building organizations across the country that we are able to grow and learn from, places that have turned their state to a progressive state. And so we get to learn tactics and things from them as well. And then we're a part of our donor table, which is NC Put for the state infrastructure. We are a part of a field cohort. This is the first year in North Carolina where I talked about the spirit of collaboration. We are building a state field plan across the state. We know what our win number is across the state of the work that we need to do. We know the areas where we need to persuade white voters to vote with us. We know the places where we need to increase Black voter turnout, and we know the areas where we need to do Black persuasion. And so we really have been working on this field program this whole first quarter of the year. A. Philip Randolph Institute is also at that table, who has been in this work for 30 years. And so we definitely believe in partnership and finding partnership in people who are doing things. We're actually, our Deep Canvas Institute, we're going to actually begin training partners on Deep Canvas so that they can use the skill of Deep Canvas and extend it to, we're going to be working with Black Future Labs, as well as the Transgender Law Center, so that this year we know that those issues, transgender issues, are going to be hot ticket items. And so we're training so that we can have a clear race class analysis, but also a gender analysis to be able to have conversations on the phone.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Thank, we have, okay, quickly, because we have 3 more questions, Susan.
Okay, and just generally, you have a lot of paid staff from time to time in the course of the year, and I wonder if you are going to foundations, to major donors, community fundraising events, just in general, where does that funding come from?
All of the above.
Okay.
As we have increased our capacity, our budget has grown. We are now at about like a $3 million budget on our C3 side. And we're looking at our field program is going to run close to 7 million this year. And so we do go to foundations. We do have individual donors. We have there's this new thing of giving circles, where a group of individuals get together and they donate small amounts as a group so we have relationships with giving circles. We also have membership dues. I do speaking engagements and use honorariums for fundraising as well. And so there are different ways that we raise our funds.
So, yeah, I just want to jump in here and say that we'd like to just support Down Home any way we can. And Jewel is going to send out the chat, which has the website of Down Home, North Carolina. And we don't have a budget. We don't have money. We don't have an infrastructure, But if we as individuals want to express our gratitude to Dreama for being here, we can donate to Down Home. And one thing we could do is become members, right? Talk to us a little bit about how we can support everything you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So we definitely, we have, if you need to make tax deductible contributions, we have our C3, which is called We Are Down Home. And the website is wearedownhome.org. You can donate there for tax deductible, or you can donate on our C4 side, which is where we do our political work. Our membership dues are $1 a month for people who consider themselves working class, so it's $12 a year. If you are wealthy, or you have more than working class, are able to, we do ask for $25 a month there. And so you can go to our websites as well and join our memberships there as well.
Okay, I'm going to put that link in the chat. Thank you so much. And Lib has a question.
Okay, and noticing that the editor of the Alamance Alamance News had said that he thought it was he put an editorial in that it was a waste of time to suggest that the commissioners in Burlington approve abolishing nuclear weapons. And then in Alamance County, he did the very same thing. My question, Ms. Caldwell, is what media supports you in your effort? You are amazing and wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And they think it's a waste of time for abolition of nuclear weapons. It's no telling what they're going to say about what you're doing.
Yeah, doing work in rural areas, there aren't a lot of friendly media in rural areas. We are actually often painted as radicals or troublemakers. And so Alamance News is a place that has not been friendly to myself, because I worked in Alamance County a long time before Down Home, and they haven't been friendly to Down Home at all. Times News, sometimes it's hit or miss. And so we rely on Politico, or, I mean, we have to bring in more liberal news sources in if we'd like to get our stories out. But yeah, that is an issue in rural areas, rural newspapers. We are shifting power in the areas that we're in, which is not possible at all. Yes, I saw a note, the Assembly has covered work that we've done as well.
We're almost out of time. We have a closing song, but can you just give us a few minutes on Mark Robinson?
Yes.
Yeah, Mark Robinson is just dangerous. His politics is dangerous to North Carolina. I have a personal, sincere worry about Mark Robinson as we talk about the Black vote, because Mark Robinson is very skilled in what I call homiletics. When you hear the Black preachers talk, he's very skilled in that. He also can prey upon some values that Black Christians have and twist them in a way that they believe that he's their man. And Mark Robinson has said things like God formed him to fight LGBTQ issues. He's called people filth. He's talked about shooting people and how he would defend people. He would set us back 20 years as governor here in North Carolina. I was working in childcare in 2018, the last time we had a trifecta, a supermajority, and it was really bad. I watched children lose their childcare vouchers. I watched parents lose their food stamp benefits being cut. And it was just a really sad time. And Mark Robinson now is playing nice. But if you will go back and look at who he is from Greensboro, where I live. He made an inflamed speech to the city council about guns. At the time, he wasn't even a gun owner when he made the speech. It went viral. The NRA paid him to be a spokesperson. He spoke at their convention. And the next thing you know, he's our lieutenant governor and now running for governor. He is really as right wing as you could get right now. And I see this game that the GOP are playing of just like putting Black men up. We saw it with Herschel Walker and other things. But we are just telling people to not be fooled because this man is not our man. And so you'll see us say that a lot this year about he is not our man. And our hashtag we use is miss the mark because Mark Robinson is just not it. And so we'll spend the year of just educating people on that.
We are 100% with you on all of that, 150%. Words cannot express our gratitude to you. We want to support you every way we can. We're all on the same page, doing the same work. And every single day, I'm grateful for you and what you're doing. And I'm just gonna, I just want to thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you all for the work that you do. And thank you for, I know you all are not paid to do this work and that you're doing this work out of the goodness of your heart and fighting for our democracy. Right now, we're seriously, really fighting for our democracy right now. And so I thank you for the work that you do. And one of the things that I believe is that community organizing and organizing in general is the cure. It is the antidote to this rise in authoritarianism that we see. And we're stronger together and we all need each other. And so I will also do a follow-up email to talk about the things that we have coming on. If you have not, go to our website and subscribe to our Holler newsletter that comes out every month that keeps you up with all the activities and things that are going on. And I wish you all the best. And let me know if I could ever come back and share again. And thank you so much for what you do. And I'm going to send you opportunities to engage with Deep Canvas as well.
That's great. It is a great, you have a great newsletter. And you made my day today when you subscribed to our newsletter. After last night being so inspired, Mike and Randa wrote a closing song. So if you can stay for the closing song, you could also read the chat where there's a lot of love for you. Thanks again.
It's time for the thunder to end this oppression we are under. Yes, it's time for the thunder. Injustice will be rent asunder. Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, we are the thunder, or we are the storm. We are the lightning. Our passion transformed. Reverend Barber tells us, just like Martin did. Did he just?
He froze.
Okay. Reverend Barber tells us, well, just like Martin did, it's an evil system of great and bigotry, of which we must be rid. With our weapons of truth and justice and love, we recommit to fight for the good they speak so fiercely of. Yeah, we are the thunder, oh, we are the storm. We are the lightning, our passion transforms. Now what's to become
Of our beloved broken land, a remnant of democracy for which we boldly stand. While white supremacy still holds much sway, and Christian nationalism, it's the devil we must slay.
Oh, we are the thunder, we are the storm, we are the lightning, our passion transforms.
Decent schools, healthcare for all, is this too much to ask? No, we must demand, though we know it's a daunting task. Well,